The rain hammered against the tall windows of Marcello's, one of Manhattan's most exclusive Italian restaurants, where crystal chandeliers cast golden light over white tablecloths, and the soft murmur of wealth filled the air. Maya Torres moved between tables with practiced grace, her black server's uniform impeccable despite the exhaustion weighing down her shoulders. 24 years old, with dark hair pulled back in a tight bun and eyes that had seen too much for her age, she wore the professional smile that came with 5 years of dealing with demanding customers who never looked her in the eye. "More wine for table 7, barked Gerald, the head waiter, barely glancing at her as he passed. Maya nodded, already moving toward the wine cellar entrance. Her feet ached in the cheap shoes she couldn't afford to replace, and her back protested every step after a double shift that had started at 11 that morning. But she needed the money. She always needed the money. The restaurant hummed with its usual Friday night energy. Businessmen celebrating deals, couples on expensive dates, tourists trying to taste a piece of authentic New York luxury. Maya had learned to read them all, to anticipate their needs before they voiced them, to become invisible while remaining attentive. It was survival in a city that chewed up people like her and spit them out without a second thought. "Miss, this pasta is cold," complained a woman at table 12, her diamond earrings catching the light as she frowned at her plate. Maya approached with her practiced smile. "I'm so sorry, ma'am. I'll have the kitchen prepare a fresh plate immediately." "See that you do," the woman replied dismissively, already turning back to her companion. Maya took the plate, feeling the familiar sting of being treated like furniture, and headed toward the kitchen. She'd learned not to take it personally years ago. These people existed in a different world, one where people like her were simply part of the scenery, meant to serve and disappear. The kitchen was chaos. Chef Antonio yelling in Italian, pans clanging, orders being called out. Maya slipped through the organized mayhem, placed her request, and grabbed the bottle of expensive Chianti for table 7. As she turned to leave, she caught her reflection in the stainless steel refrigerator. Dark circles under her eyes, skin paler than usual, the exhaustion evident despite her best efforts to hide it. "Just get through tonight," she told herself. "Rent is due in 3 days." She pushed through the swinging doors back into the dining room and immediately sensed something different. The atmosphere had shifted, subtle, but unmistakable. Conversations had dropped to hushed whispers. Several diners had stopped eating, their attention drawn toward the entrance. Maya followed their gazes. 3 men stood at the host station, and even from across the room, their presence commanded attention. They wore expensive suits that fit too perfectly, moved with a predatory confidence that made the space around them feel smaller. But it was the man in the center who drew every eye, Vincent Carmichael. Even Maya, who deliberately avoided the news and tried to keep her head down, knew that name. Everyone in New York knew that name. He was a ghost story told in whispers, a warning about what happened when you crossed certain lines. The newspapers called him a businessman with alleged connections to organized crime, but the careful language couldn't hide what everyone knew. Vincent Carmichael was dangerous, powerful, and untouchable. He was tall, perhaps 6'2", with broad shoulders that filled his charcoal suit impeccably. His dark hair was swept back, showing a strong, angular face that might have been handsome, if not for the coldness in his dark eyes. He was 38, Maya had heard, though he carried himself with the controlled confidence of someone who had lived several lifetimes. There was silver threading through his temples, and a small scar cut through his left eyebrow, the only visible flaw in an otherwise carefully maintained appearance. Gerald rushed forward, his usual arrogance replaced with nervous deference. "Mr. Carmichael, what an honor. We weren't expecting your usual table, of course. Right this way." Vincent said nothing, simply nodded once. His eyes swept the room with calculated precision, noting exits, windows, the placement of other diners. He moved like a man who always knew where the dangers were, who had survived by being more aware than everyone else. His 2 companions flanked him as Gerald led them toward a corner table, the best position in the restaurant, with walls at the back and a clear view of all entrances. Maya recognized the tactical advantage even as she wondered why she'd noticed it. Maybe working in restaurants had taught her more about human nature than she'd realized. "Maya," Gerald hissed suddenly at her elbow. "You'll be serving Mr. Carmichael's table." Her stomach dropped. "What? Why not you?" "Because I'm assigning you," Gerald snapped, though she could see the relief in his eyes. He was scared, she realized. The pompous head waiter who normally treated her like dirt was actually afraid to serve these men himself. "Gerald, it's not a discussion. Table 15. Go." Maya's hands tightened around the wine bottle she still carried. She wanted to refuse, to pass this off to someone else, but she knew Gerald would make her life miserable if she pushed back, and she couldn't afford to lose this job. Taking a deep breath, she approached table 15 with her professional smile firmly in place. Up close, Vincent Carmichael was even more intimidating. His presence filled the space around him like a physical force. The two men with him, one older with gray hair and cold blue eyes, the other younger with a boxer's build, watched her approach with the unsettling stillness of people trained to assess threats. "Good evening, gentlemen," Maya said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "Welcome to Marcello's. Can I start you off with something to drink?" Vincent's eyes lifted to her face, and for a moment she felt completely exposed. His gaze was sharp, analytical, taking in every detail with an intensity that made her want to step back. But Maya had dealt with intimidating men before. Different circumstances, different kinds of danger, but she'd learned not to show fear. She met his eyes steadily, maintaining her professional demeanor. Something flickered in his expression, surprise perhaps, or interest. Most people, she imagined, looked away when Vincent Carmichael stared at them. "Scotch," he said, his voice deep and controlled. "Macallan 25. Neat." "Of course." Maya turned to the other men, taking their orders, one whiskey, one vodka, before heading to the bar. Her hands trembled slightly as she relayed the order to Marcus, the bartender. He gave her a sympathetic look. "Tough table?" "You could say that. Just keep your head down and get through it," Marcus advised, already reaching for the expensive bottles. "Guys like that tip well if you don't cause problems." Maya nodded, watching him pour the drinks with practiced precision. Through the bar's mirror, she could see table 15 reflected back at her. Vincent was speaking quietly to his companions, his expression unreadable. The older man leaned in, clearly reporting something important. The younger one kept his attention on the room, watchful and alert. They were discussing business, she realized. The kind of business that probably shouldn't be discussed in public. But when you were Vincent Carmichael, who would dare eavesdrop? She delivered the drinks with efficient professionalism, took their dinner orders, all of them choosing the most expensive items on the menu, without bothering to look at prices, and retreated to input the order. The rest of the restaurant had returned to its normal rhythm, though Maya noticed several tables casting furtive glances toward the corner. Vincent Carmichael's presence changed the entire atmosphere, like a predator at a watering hole. The next hour passed in a blur of service. Maya brought bread, appetizers, entrees, all while maintaining the perfect balance of attentiveness and invisibility. The men at table 15 spoke in low voices, their conversation intense but controlled. She caught fragments, names she didn't recognize, mentions of the shipment and the Brooklyn situation, but she immediately pushed them from her mind. Whatever Vincent Carmichael's business was, she wanted no part of knowing about it. It was during dessert service that everything changed. Maya was approaching with the espresso Vincent had requested when she noticed the young man at table 8. He'd been seated there for about 20 minutes, nursing a single glass of wine, his attention repeatedly drifting toward table 15. Something about him set off alarm bells in Maya's mind. The nervous energy, the way his hand kept moving to his jacket pocket, the sweat on his forehead despite the restaurant's perfect climate control. She'd seen desperation before, had lived with it, fought against it. This man radiated it. As she passed his table, she saw him stand abruptly, his hand diving into his jacket. Time seemed to slow. She saw the glint of metal, saw the determination in his eyes, saw him turning toward Vincent's table. Maya didn't think, didn't plan, didn't calculate the consequences. The espresso cup was still in her hand as she pivoted, closing the distance between herself and the young man in 3 quick steps. As his hand emerged from his jacket, gun, definitely a gun, she threw the scalding espresso directly into his face. He screamed, hands flying to his eyes, the weapon clattering to the floor. The restaurant erupted into chaos. Women shrieked, men shouted, chairs scraped against marble as people scrambled away from the threat. But Maya's attention was fixed on the gun skittering across the floor, heading toward table 15. She lunged for it without thinking, her fingers closing around the cold metal just as strong hands grabbed her from behind. "Drop it," a voice growled in her ear, the younger man from Vincent's table, his grip on her arms like iron. I was just," Maya gasped, but the man wasn't listening. He spun her around roughly, prepared to neutralize what he perceived as a threat. "Marco, stop!" Vincent's voice cut through the chaos like a blade. He stood now, his composure absolute despite the pandemonium around him. His dark eyes fixed on Maya with laser focus, taking in the scene, the young man on the ground, still clutching his burned face, the gun in her hand, the trajectory it had taken across the floor. Understanding dawned in his expression. She wasn't attacking, Vincent said quietly, moving closer. She was stopping one. Marco released Maya immediately, though he stayed close. Vincent stepped forward, his presence commanding even in crisis. Police sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The restaurant staff was trying to restore order, Gerald shouting instructions, other servers helping frightened customers. Vincent extended his hand toward Maya. The weapon. She handed it over without hesitation, relief flooding through her as the cold metal left her fingers. Her hands were shaking now, adrenaline crashing through her system as the reality of what had just happened hit her. Vincent checked the gun with practiced efficiency, engaging the safety and tucking it into his jacket. Then his attention returned to Maya, studying her with an intensity that made her feel like he was reading her entire life story in a single glance. "What's your name?" he asked. "Maya Torres." "Maya Torres," he repeated, as if committing it to memory. "You just saved my life. He was going to—" She couldn't seem to form complete sentences, the shock finally catching up with her. The older man from Vincent's table was on his phone, speaking rapidly in Italian. The young would-be attacker was being restrained by two of Marcello's larger staff members, still moaning about his eyes. Police burst through the entrance, weapons drawn, shouting commands. Vincent raised his hands slowly, showing he was unarmed, his movements careful and controlled. "Officers, I'm Vincent Carmichael. That man on the floor attempted to attack my table. This young woman," he gestured to Maya, "prevented it. There are dozens of witnesses." The police moved efficiently, separating people for statements, securing the weapon, handcuffing the attacker. Maya found herself guided to a chair, a female officer asking her questions that she answered mechanically, her mind still trying to process what had happened. She'd thrown coffee in a man's face, had grabbed a gun off the floor, had saved Vincent Carmichael's life. What have I done? The restaurant cleared slowly as statements were taken and customers were allowed to leave. Maya's shift supervisor, Maria, brought her a glass of water with shaking hands. "Maya, are you okay? That was incredibly brave, and incredibly stupid," Maria added, though her voice was filled with concern rather than criticism. "I didn't think," Maya admitted. "I just reacted. That man could have turned on you. Could have—" Maria couldn't finish the sentence, but he hadn't. Maya had moved faster, acted on instinct honed by years of watching people, reading situations, surviving in a city that demanded constant awareness. An hour later, after what felt like endless questions and statements, Maya was finally told she could leave. Her shift was long over, the restaurant was closing for the night, and exhaustion pulled at her like gravity. She collected her jacket from the back, her tips from the evening. Ironically, it had been a good night before everything went wrong, and headed for the employee exit. Vincent Carmichael was waiting there. He stood in the dim alley behind Marcello's, the rain having softened to a drizzle. His suit was still perfect, his composure absolute, but something in his expression had changed. The coldness had thawed slightly, replaced by something Maya couldn't quite identify. She stopped, uncertain. Should she run? Call for help? But even as the thoughts formed, she knew they were ridiculous. If Vincent Carmichael wanted to hurt her, he wouldn't wait in an alley. He would simply make her disappear, and no one would ever know what happened to the waitress who'd served his table. "Ms. Torres," he said, his voice carrying clearly despite the soft patter of rain. "A moment of your time." Maya approached cautiously, keeping several feet between them. "Mr. Carmichael, you don't seem afraid of me. Should I be?" A hint of amusement touched his lips, so brief she might have imagined it. "Most people are. I've met scary people before," Maya said, surprising herself with her honesty. "Different kind of scary maybe, but fear is fear." Vincent studied her with that intense gaze again, and Maya had the uncomfortable feeling he could see past all her carefully constructed walls, past the professional waitress persona, down to the scared kid from Chicago who'd been running from her own demons for years. "What you did tonight was foolish," he said finally. "That man could have turned his weapon on you, could have pulled the trigger before you reached him." "I know. Then why did you do it?" Maya considered the question. Why had she? She didn't know Vincent Carmichael, didn't owe him anything, had every reason to keep her head down and let whatever happened happen. Because I could, she said finally. Because I saw what was about to happen, and I had maybe 2 seconds to decide if I was the kind of person who stands by and watches, or the kind who does something about it. And I guess I chose. Vincent was silent for a long moment, the rain creating a soft curtain around them, the distant sounds of the city muffled and far away. You chose correctly, he said. Because of your actions, I'm alive. My associates are alive, and that man will face justice for his intentions rather than his completed actions. I'm glad, Maya said simply. Vincent reached into his jacket, and Maya tensed, but he only withdrew a business card, extending it toward her. My private number. If you ever need anything at all, you call that number. Maya took the card, the heavy stock paper expensive beneath her fingers. Just his name and a phone number, no title, no company. Simple and direct. Thank you, but I don't need... You will, Vincent interrupted, his voice carrying absolute certainty. What you did tonight will have consequences. That man wasn't acting alone. When his employers learn you interfered, they may seek retribution. Fear, cold and sharp, pierced through Maya's exhaustion. What? Why would they come after me? I'm nobody. You're somebody who cost them an opportunity. In my world, Miss Torres, that makes you a target. His expression softened slightly, almost imperceptibly. I won't let anything happen to you. You have my word. But you need to be aware of the reality you've stepped into. Maya stared at him, the business card suddenly feeling like a lead weight in her hand. She'd done the right thing, acted on instinct to save lives, and now she was tangled in something dark and dangerous that she couldn't begin to understand. I just wanted to get through my shift, she said quietly, hating how small her voice sounded. I know, Vincent replied, and something in his tone suggested he understood more than she'd said. But life rarely cares what we want. It presents us with moments that define us, and we have to choose who we're going to be. He stepped back, creating more distance between them, his face returning to that unreadable mask of control. Go home, Maya Torres. Get some rest. But keep that card and stay aware of your surroundings. Someone will be watching, making sure you're safe. Someone? Maya's voice sharpened. You're going to have me followed? Protected, Vincent corrected. There's a difference. I don't want... It's not negotiable. His voice carried absolute authority now, the tone of a man who gave orders and expected them to be followed. You saved my life. That creates an obligation, and I always honor my obligations. You will be protected, whether you want it or not. Before Maya could protest further, Vincent turned and walked toward a black SUV that had pulled up to the alley entrance. Marco and the older man emerged from shadows Maya hadn't realized they'd been lurking in, falling into step with their boss. The SUV's door opened. Vincent disappeared inside, and then they were gone, leaving Maya alone in the rain-soaked alley, with questions spiraling through her mind and a business card clutched in her hand. She looked down at it, reading the name embossed in simple black letters, Vincent Carmichael, and below it, the number that would change everything. Maya tucked the card into her jacket pocket and started the long walk to her apartment, unaware that in the shadows across the street, a figure watched her go, already beginning the protection Vincent had promised. Her life as an invisible waitress was over. The question now was who she would become in the world she'd just entered. Maya didn't sleep that night. She lay in her cramped studio apartment in Queens, staring at the water-stained ceiling while traffic noise filtered through the thin walls. The events at Marcello's replayed in her mind on an endless loop. The glint of metal, the heat of coffee in her hand, Vincent Carmichael's dark eyes studying her like she was a puzzle he needed to solve. The business card sat on her nightstand, innocuous and dangerous all at once. By the time gray dawn light crept through her curtains, Maya had convinced herself that Vincent's warning was probably an overreaction. Powerful men liked to make everything seem dramatic, didn't they? She'd stopped one desperate person from doing something terrible. That didn't make her a target. It made her someone who'd been in the wrong place at the right time. She got ready for her morning shift at the diner where she worked breakfast and lunch, her second job, necessary to make rent in a city that devoured paychecks. The diner was nothing like Marcello's, just a neighborhood place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been brewing since the Reagan administration. But the tips were decent, and the owner, Jimmy, didn't ask questions about her past. The subway ride into Manhattan felt different somehow. Maya found herself watching the other passengers more carefully, noting the man in the business suit who seemed too interested in his newspaper, the woman with the large purse who kept glancing around nervously. She shook her head, frustrated with herself. This was paranoia, nothing more. But when she emerged at her stop and started the 3-block walk to the diner, she couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Maya turned suddenly, scanning the morning crowd of commuters and delivery trucks. Nothing seemed out of place. Just another Tuesday morning in New York. Everyone rushing somewhere, absorbed in their own worlds. "You're being ridiculous," she told herself firmly, pushing through the diner's door. The familiar smell of bacon grease and coffee grounds was comforting in its normalcy. "Maya?" Jimmy called from behind the counter, his weathered face breaking into a smile. "You okay? I saw the news about that thing at Marcello's. They said a waitress stopped some kind of attack." Word traveled fast. Maya forced a smile as she tied her apron. "I'm fine, Jimmy. Just did what anyone would do." "Anyone with guts, maybe," he replied, shaking his head admiringly. "Coffee's fresh. Table 4 needs menus." Maya slipped into her routine gratefully, taking orders, delivering plates of eggs and hash browns, refilling coffee cups. The familiar rhythm helped settle her nerves. This was her real life, not expensive Italian restaurants and mob bosses, but working-class New York, where people worried about rent and subway delays, and whether their coffee came with free refills. She was clearing table 7 when she noticed him. A man sat alone in the corner booth, nursing a single cup of coffee. Mid-30s, athletic build, wearing jeans and a dark jacket. His position gave him a clear view of the entire diner, including the entrance and the back exit that led to the kitchen. He'd been sitting there for 40 minutes, Maya realized, and hadn't ordered any food, and he was watching her. Not obviously. He'd glance at his phone, look out the window, pick up his coffee, but his attention always returned to her, tracking her movements with professional precision. Maya's stomach tightened. She approached his booth with her order pad, keeping her voice steady. "Can I get you anything else? Breakfast, maybe?" The man looked up, and his eyes were cold and assessing. "Just the coffee, thanks. We usually don't appreciate people camping out in booths during the breakfast rush," Maya said more boldly than she felt. "If you're just here for coffee, the counter has open seats." Something flickered in his expression. Was that approval? "I'm comfortable here." "I'm sure you are." Maya held his gaze. "But I'd be more comfortable if you told me why you're watching me." The man's lips twitched, almost a smile. Direct. "I like that." He set down his coffee cup. "Name's Torres. I work for Mr. Carmichael." "Of course you do," Maya muttered, sliding into the booth across from him without invitation. "He said someone would be watching. I didn't think he meant this, obviously." "I'm not trying to be subtle," Torres replied. "I'm trying to be visible. There's a difference. If anyone's thinking about making a move on you, they need to see that you're protected." Maya's frustration flared. "I don't need protection. I need to do my job and pay my rent and live my life. What happened last night, that's done. It's over." "It's not over." Torres leaned forward, his voice low but intense. "The man who tried to take out Mr. Carmichael? His name is Danny Ricci. Low-level operator, hired gun. He didn't wake up yesterday morning and decide to go after one of the most powerful men in New York on his own. Someone sent him. Someone who's now very interested in why their plan failed." The implications settled over Maya like a cold weight. "And they know about me? They know someone interfered. The restaurant had security cameras. By now they've seen the footage, identified you, and they're deciding what to do about it." Maya's hands clenched on the edge of the table. "This is insane. I didn't ask for any of this." "No, you didn't," Torres agreed, his expression softening slightly. "But you stepped up anyway. That took courage. Now Mr. Carmichael is making sure that courage doesn't get you hurt. By having me followed everywhere? By keeping you alive?" Torres's bluntness was almost refreshing in its honesty. "Look, I know this isn't what you want, but for the next few weeks, until we identify who ordered the hit and neutralize the threat, you're going to have a shadow. Me during the day, someone else at night. We'll be discreet when we can, visible when we need to be." Maya wanted to argue, to insist that she could take care of herself, but the truth was, she had no idea how to navigate this world of hired attackers and powerful enemies. She was a waitress, not an action hero. Her bravery last night had been pure instinct, and now she was facing consequences she couldn't begin to handle alone. "Jimmy," she called across the diner, "I'm taking my break." Outside, the morning had warmed into a pleasant spring day, the kind that made New York feel almost manageable. Maya walked half a block before turning to face Torres, who had followed at a discreet distance. "If this is going to happen, we need rules." she said. You don't come into my workplace unless absolutely necessary. You don't sit where my customers can see you watching me. You don't interfere with my life. Torres considered this. I can work with that. But you need to follow rules too. You don't go anywhere alone at night. You take cabs, not the subway, and we provide the cabs. You tell me your schedule every day. And if I say we need to move, you move. No questions, no delays. That's a lot of rules. That's staying alive, Torres countered. This isn't a game, Maya. The people who wanted Mr. Carmichael gone don't care if you're just a waitress trying to get by. They see you as someone who cost them something, and they will retaliate if given the chance. Maya felt the weight of her new reality settling over her shoulders. How long? However long it takes. Could be days, could be weeks. Mr. Carmichael's people are working on identifying the source. Once we know who ordered the hit, we can address the threat permanently. Address it how? Maya asked, then immediately held up her hand. Actually, don't tell me. I don't want to know. Torres nodded, understanding. Probably for the best. The rest of Maya's shift passed in a blur of forced normalcy. She served breakfast, dealt with the usual demanding customers, split tips with the other servers. But the awareness of Torres lurking somewhere outside, watching, protecting, colored everything. Her independence, the thing she'd fought so hard to maintain since leaving Chicago 5 years ago, felt compromised in a way that made her chest tight with frustration. When her shift ended at 2, Maya changed out of her uniform and stepped outside to find a black sedan waiting at the curb. The back window rolled down, revealing Vincent Carmichael's face. "Get in," he said simply. Maya glanced around, looking for Torres, but the bodyguard had apparently vanished. She hesitated, every instinct screaming that getting into a car with Vincent Carmichael was a monumentally bad idea. But curiosity won out over caution. She slid into the back seat and the car pulled smoothly into traffic. The interior smelled of leather and expensive cologne. Vincent sat with perfect posture, his attention seemingly focused on the phone in his hand, but Maya had the sense he was completely aware of her presence, of her discomfort, of every small movement she made. "Where are we going?" she asked. "To talk." Vincent set his phone aside, giving her his full attention. "You met Torres. Hard to miss him camping out in my diner. He's good at his job. Former military, decorated service, completely loyal." "That's great for you," Maya said, her frustration bubbling up. "But I didn't sign up for any of this. I don't want bodyguards or protected cars or to be tangled up in whatever world you live in." Vincent studied her with those dark, penetrating eyes. "What do you want, Maya Torres?" The question caught her off guard. "What?" "It's a simple question. What do you want from your life?" Maya stared at him, unsure how to answer. What did she want? To survive, to keep her head above water, to maybe someday save enough money to feel secure. But those seemed like small, pathetic goals to admit to a man like Vincent Carmichael. "I want to be left alone," she said finally. "I want to work my jobs, pay my rent, and not have to worry about people trying to hurt me because I did the right thing." "An admirable goal," Vincent said. "Unfortunately, it's not currently possible." The car turned onto FDR Drive, heading south along the East River. The water sparkled in the afternoon sun, and for a moment, Maya let herself imagine she was just a passenger on a pleasant drive, not trapped in a situation spiraling further beyond her control with each passing hour. "The man who hired Danny Ricci," Vincent continued, "is named Frank Delacroix. He runs operations in Brooklyn, has ambitions that exceed his capabilities, and sees my territory as an opportunity for expansion. Taking me out would create a power vacuum he believes he could fill. And instead, he got a waitress throwing coffee in his hired gun's face," Maya said. "Precisely. Which means he failed, lost credibility with his associates, and now needs to save face. The easiest way to do that is to eliminate the person who interfered. Me. You." Maya let that sink in. "So what happens now? I just live with bodyguards forever? Hide until this Frank person forgets about me?" "Frank Delacroix doesn't forget," Vincent said, his voice hardening. "But he can be dealt with. I have people gathering information, identifying his operations, finding leverage. Within a few weeks, he'll have bigger problems than a waitress who got lucky." "I wasn't lucky," Maya said, surprising herself with the sharpness in her voice. "I paid attention. I saw what was about to happen. I acted. That wasn't luck, that was a choice." Vincent's expression shifted, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "You're right. It was a choice. A brave one that saved lives. I'm simply trying to ensure that choice doesn't cost you yours." The car pulled to a stop near South Street Seaport. Vincent opened his door, clearly expecting Maya to follow. She did, stepping out into the afternoon bustle of tourists and street vendors. Vincent walked toward the waterfront, and Maya fell into step beside him, acutely aware of the discreet security following at a distance. "I grew up in Brooklyn," Vincent said suddenly, his gaze on the water. "Red Hook, back when it was rough. My father worked the docks, broke his back for pennies, and died when I was 16. Heart attack brought on by stress and exhaustion and a system that chewed up men like him." Maya listened, surprised by this glimpse into Vincent's past. He didn't seem like a man who shared personal history easily. "I had a choice then," he continued. "Follow his path, work myself into an early grave for nothing, or find another way. I chose power, control, the ability to ensure no one could dictate my life the way the world dictated my father's. And you became this," Maya said quietly. "Someone people fear." "Yes." Vincent turned to face her. "But I also became someone who protects what's mine. My people, my territory, my obligations. You saved my life, Maya Torres. That makes you mine to protect whether you want it or not." "I'm not yours," Maya said firmly. "I'm not anyone's." "Poor choice of words," Vincent acknowledged. "But the sentiment remains. You're under my protection now. Until the threat is neutralized, that's not negotiable." Maya studied his face, trying to understand the man behind the reputation. He was dangerous, that was obvious. But there was something else there too, something almost principled. He operated by rules that made sense to him, even if they seemed alien to her world. "Why does it matter to you?" she asked. "You could just eliminate this frank person and be done with it. Why bother protecting me at all?" "Because I pay my debts," Vincent said simply. "And because," he paused, seeming to consider his words carefully, "because you didn't have to act. No one would have blamed you for staying back, protecting yourself. But you didn't. You saw danger and ran toward it, not away. That kind of courage is rare, and it deserves to be protected." They stood in silence for a moment, watching boats drift on the river. Maya felt the weight of Vincent's words, the strange honor code that governed his actions. He was a complicated man, dangerous and principled, feared and honorable. Nothing like what she'd expected when she'd first seen him walk into Marcello's. "I need to get to my evening shift," Maya said finally. "Marcello's opens at 5. You're going back there?" "It's my job, I need the money." Vincent pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. "You'll receive a deposit tonight. 3 months' salary from both your jobs. Consider it compensation for the disruption to your life. I don't want your money. It's not charity, it's payment. You saved my life. That's worth considerably more than 3 months of waitress wages. But it's a start." His tone indicated the discussion was over. The car returned, and Vincent held the door for her with old-fashioned courtesy that seemed at odds with everything else about him. Maya slid inside, her mind spinning with everything that had happened in the last 18 hours. As the car pulled away from the seaport, Vincent's phone rang. He answered in Italian, his voice sharp and commanding. Maya didn't understand the words, but the tone was clear. He was giving orders, making decisions that would ripple through his organization. This was his world. Power and control, threats and protection, violence wrapped in expensive suits. And somehow, through one impulsive act of courage, Maya had become part of it. The question was whether she could survive it long enough to find her way back out. 3 weeks passed in a strange new rhythm that Maya never quite got used to. Torres became a constant shadow, discreet but ever present. He waited outside her apartment building each morning, followed her to work at distances that varied depending on the neighborhood, and handed her off to the night shift protection when darkness fell. Maya learned the names. Marcus handled evenings, a quiet man with kind eyes who'd served 2 tours overseas. Sophia took the late nights, a sharp-eyed woman who seemed capable of seeing threats before they materialized. The money Vincent had promised appeared in her bank account exactly as he'd said it would. Maya stared at the balance for 10 minutes, her throat tight. It was more money than she'd ever had at once, enough to breathe for the first time in years. She could pay rent 3 months ahead, fix the leak in her bathroom, replace her worn-out shoes. But accepting it felt like crossing a line she couldn't uncross. At Marcello's, the other servers treated her differently now. Some with awe, others with careful distance, as if her connection to Vincent Carmichael was contagious. Gerald, the head waiter who used to bark orders at her, now spoke with nervous politeness. Even Chef Antonio sent out perfect plates for her tables without complaint. Maya hated it. She missed being invisible, just another server navigating the organized chaos of dinner service. It was a Thursday evening, the restaurant humming with its usual upscale crowd, when Vincent walked in again. Maya's pulse quickened despite herself. She'd seen him twice since that day at the seaport. Brief encounters where he checked on her protection detail or asked if she needed anything. Each time she'd kept their interactions short and professional, maintaining the boundaries she desperately needed. But tonight he didn't sit at table 15. He approached the bar where Maya was collecting drinks, his presence commanding immediate attention from everyone nearby. "Miss Torres," he said formally, though something in his eyes suggested less formal thoughts. "A moment." "I'm working," Maya replied, balancing a tray of wine glasses. "It's important." The tone made her stomach clench. She nodded to Gerald, who practically tripped over himself to take her tray, and followed Vincent to a quiet corner near the kitchen entrance. "We have a problem," Vincent said without preamble. "Frank Delacroix is making moves faster than anticipated. My people intercepted communication suggesting he's planning something for this weekend." "Something involving me?" Maya's voice was steady, though fear curled in her chest. "Potentially. We're not certain of his target, but your name came up in surveillance. I'm moving you to a secure location until we can neutralize the threat." "Moving me where?" "I have a property in Westchester. Private, heavily secured. You'll be comfortable there until this is resolved." Maya shook her head firmly. "No, I'm not running away to hide in some mansion while you handle your business. I have a life, Vincent. Jobs, bills, responsibilities. You have a target on your back," Vincent countered, his jaw tightening. "This isn't about convenience, Maya. This is about keeping you alive." "Then deal with Frank Delacroix. Isn't that what people like you do? Handle threats?" "I am handling it. But these things take time. Strategy. You can't just—" Vincent stopped, seeming to catch himself. "This isn't a negotiation." "You're right, it's not," Maya said, her own frustration boiling over. "Because I'm not one of your employees you can just order around. I appreciate the protection, I do. But I'm not disappearing from my life because some angry man might decide to come after me." They stared at each other, the tension crackling between them. Vincent's control seemed to slip slightly, revealing something raw underneath. Concern, maybe even fear, though Maya couldn't imagine Vincent Carmichael being afraid of anything. "You don't understand what these people are capable of," he said, his voice lower now, more intense. "They won't hesitate. They won't show mercy. If they decide you're the message they want to send, they will hurt you in ways designed to break you first." Maya felt the weight of those words, the truth behind them. But she'd been afraid before, had lived through situations where every day felt like survival. She'd learned that running didn't solve problems, it just postponed them. "Then teach me," she said suddenly. "Stop treating me like helpless cargo and teach me how to protect myself." Vincent's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features. "What? You heard me. If I'm going to live in this world you've dragged me into, I need to know how to survive in it. Self-defense, awareness, whatever Torres and the others know. I'm not hiding, Vincent, so either help me prepare or back off and let me live my life." For a long moment, Vincent said nothing. Then, unexpectedly, his lips curved into something almost resembling a smile. "You're stubborn. I'm practical," Maya corrected. "There's a difference." "Fine." Vincent pulled out his phone, typed quickly. "Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., I'll send a car. We'll start training. I have work. Call in." "This is more important." Before Maya could argue further, Vincent's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his expression hardened instantly. "I have to go. Torres will stay close tonight. Don't go anywhere alone." He left without another word, moving through the restaurant with that confident, predatory grace. Maya watched him go, her mind spinning. What had she just agreed to? The rest of her shift passed uneventfully, but Maya felt the tension in her shoulders, the hyper-awareness that had become her constant companion. She noticed things now. The couple at table 9 who seemed more interested in watching the room than each other. The delivery man who lingered too long near the back entrance. The way shadows moved in the alley visible through the kitchen windows. Torres was waiting when she finished at 11, his face grave. "Change of plans. Mr. Carmichael wants you at his office now." "What, why?" "He'll explain. Come on." The drive took them deeper into Manhattan, to a building Maya recognized from news reports. Carmichael Enterprises, Vincent's legitimate business front. They rode an elevator to the top floor, emerging into a reception area decorated with modern art and expensive furniture. Vincent's office was massive, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the glittering city. But Maya barely noticed the view. Vincent stood at his desk with Marco and two other men she didn't recognize, all of them focused on surveillance photos spread across the polished surface. Maya, Vincent said, looking up. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, and he looked more human somehow. Less like the untouchable mob boss and more like a man dealing with a crisis. I need you to look at these photos. Tell me if you recognize anyone. Maya approached the desk, studying the surveillance images. They showed various people entering and leaving buildings, sitting in cars, standing on street corners. Her heart stopped when she reached the fourth photo. That's my building, she said, pointing to the background. That was taken outside my apartment. 2 days ago, Vincent confirmed. The man in the foreground, have you seen him before? Maya studied the figure carefully. Middle-aged, average build, wearing a maintenance uniform. Something about him nagged at her memory. Maybe. I don't... Wait. She leaned closer. He was doing repairs in the building last week. Said he was from the landlord's maintenance company. The men exchanged looks that made Maya's stomach drop. What? She demanded. What does that mean? It means Frank's people have been watching you more closely than we thought, Marco said grimly. Getting access to your building, learning your routines, looking for vulnerabilities. They were in my apartment building. Maya's voice rose despite her efforts to stay calm. While I was sleeping, Vincent moved around the desk, standing close enough that she could feel the heat from his body. This is why I wanted you moved to a secure location. They're not waiting anymore, Maya. They're actively planning. Then do something, Maya shouted, her fear transforming into anger. You keep saying you'll handle it, that you'll protect me, but they're at my home, Vincent. They're watching me sleep. I am handling it, Vincent said, his voice hard. But these things require precision. If I move too openly against Frank, it triggers a war that will drag in every family in the city. Innocent people will get caught in the crossfire. I'm an innocent person, Maya shot back. Or does that not count because I'm already caught? The room fell silent. Vincent's jaw clenched, a muscle twitching as he struggled with something. Frustration, anger, or maybe something else Maya couldn't identify. Pack a bag, he said finally. You're staying here tonight. Tomorrow we accelerate the timeline. No more waiting. No more strategy. We end this. How? By giving Frank Delacroix exactly what he wants, a meeting with me. And when he comes, we'll be ready. Maya's breath caught. You're using yourself as bait. I'm ending a threat to someone I'm responsible for protecting, Vincent corrected. There's a difference. Is there? Maya challenged. Or are you just proving you're willing to risk yourself the same way you're asking me to risk everything by staying in this situation? Their eyes locked, and Maya felt something shift in the air between them. This wasn't just about protection anymore. Wasn't just about obligation and debt. Something deeper had been building over these weeks of forced proximity. Conversations in cars. Stolen moments of understanding. Vincent reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and brushed a strand of hair from her face. His touch was gentle, at odds with everything else about him. I won't let them hurt you, he said quietly, and it sounded like a vow. Whatever it takes, whatever it costs, you're safe with me. Maya should have stepped back, should have maintained the professional distance she'd been clinging to, but exhaustion, fear, and something she didn't want to name kept her frozen, as Vincent's hand lingered against her cheek. Mr. Carmichael, Torres interrupted from the doorway, his timing impeccable or possibly intentional. The security team is ready for Miss Torres. The moment broke. Vincent's hand dropped, his expression returning to that controlled mask. Take her to the residence floor. Guest suite, full security detail. Yes, sir. Maya followed Torres into the elevator, her cheek still warm where Vincent had touched her. The residence floor was elegant and surprisingly comfortable, nothing like the cold, sterile space she'd imagined. The guest suite had a king bed, a private bathroom, and windows overlooking Central Park. There's clothes in the closet if you need them, Torres said. Sophia will be stationed outside your door. You need anything, just ask. Torres, Maya said as he turned to leave. Is he really going to use himself as bait? Torres's expression was carefully neutral. Mr. Carmichael does what's necessary to protect his people. Always has. After he left, Maya sank onto the bed, her mind reeling. The events of the past 3 weeks had been surreal enough, but tonight had shifted something fundamental. Vincent wasn't just some distant protector anymore. He was real, complicated, and apparently willing to put himself in danger for her. She thought about the way he'd touched her face, the intensity in his eyes, the careful control that had seemed ready to crack. This is dangerous, she told herself. More dangerous than Frank Delacroix, more dangerous than hired attackers. Getting involved with Vincent Carmichael emotionally would be the biggest mistake you could make. But even as she thought it, Maya knew the warning came too late. She was already involved. The question was what she would do about it. Maya spent a restless night in the guest suite, alternating between exhaustion-induced dozing and wide-awake anxiety. When dawn finally broke over Central Park, she gave up on sleep and showered, finding expensive clothes in the closet that fit her perfectly, which meant Vincent had someone research her sizes, a thought both thoughtful and invasive. At 7 a.m., there was a knock on her door. Maya opened it to find not Sophia but Vincent himself holding 2 cups of coffee. "Couldn't sleep either?" he asked, offering her a cup. Maya accepted it, grateful for the caffeine. "Your couch is more comfortable than my bed at home, so that wasn't the problem." Vincent stepped into the suite and Maya was struck by how different he looked in casual clothes. Dark jeans, a gray sweater that emphasized his broad shoulders. Still commanding, but more human somehow. "I owe you an apology," he said, surprising her, "for dragging you into this world for the danger you're facing because of me. You saved my life and I've repaid that by making yours significantly more complicated. You didn't ask me to throw coffee at an armed man," Maya pointed out. "I made that choice. A choice that's costing you your freedom, your peace of mind, your safety." Vincent moved to the windows, staring out at the city waking below. "I've spent my entire adult life building power, creating an empire where I control every variable, but I can't control this. Can't control the fact that your courage put you in danger, or that Frank Delacroix sees you as leverage against me." Maya joined him at the window, standing close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. "So what happens now? With this meeting you're planning? Frank wants power, respect, territory. He'll come if I offer him a negotiation, a chance to save face. And when he does, we'll have leverage we've been building, evidence of his operations, testimony from his associates we've flipped, enough to put him away or force him into retirement. And if he doesn't cooperate?" Vincent's expression hardened. "Then we remove him from the equation permanently. One way or another, the threat ends this weekend." They stood in silence, watching the sun climb higher, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Maya thought about the man beside her, dangerous, powerful, feared, but also protective, principled, carrying burdens she couldn't fully comprehend. "Vincent," she said quietly, "last night when we," she couldn't quite finish the sentence. He turned to face her and the intensity in his dark eyes made her breath catch. "I crossed a line. It won't happen again. What if I don't want that to be a line?" The words escaped before Maya could stop them. Vincent went very still. "Maya, I'm not stupid," she interrupted. "I know what you are, what your world is. I know getting involved with you would be complicated and probably dangerous, and definitely a terrible idea. But I also know that I can't stop thinking about you, that when you're around I feel safer than I've felt in years, that you see me, really see me, in a way no one else does." "You don't know what you're saying," Vincent said, but his voice was rough with suppressed emotion. "I'm not a good man, Maya. I've done things that would horrify you, made choices that I don't care." Maya stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "I see who you are now, how you protect your people, how you honor your obligations. Yes, you're dangerous, but you're also honorable in your own way." Vincent's control was visibly cracking, his carefully maintained composure fragmenting. "If I let myself care about you, truly care, it makes you a target in ways protection details can't address. My enemies will use you to hurt me, will see you as my weakness. Then don't let them," Maya said simply. "Be stronger than they are. We'll be stronger than they are." For a moment they stood frozen, the tension between them almost unbearable. Then Vincent moved, his hand cupping her face with surprising gentleness, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "You're the bravest person I've ever met," he said quietly, "and the most dangerous to my carefully controlled life." "Good," Maya whispered. "Control is overrated." Vincent's laugh was low and genuine, transforming his face into something almost boyish. Then he was kissing her, one hand in her hair, the other at her waist, pulling her close. Maya melted into him, her hands gripping his shoulders, losing herself in the heat and intensity of the moment. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "This changes everything," he said. "I know. Frank will see it, will use it against us." "Let him try." Vincent pulled back slightly, studying her face with an expression Maya couldn't quite read. Wonder, maybe, mixed with concern and something deeper. After this weekend, after the threat is neutralized, you could walk away, he said. Go back to your life, your jobs, your independence. No one would blame you. Maya met his eyes steadily. Is that what you want? No. The word came out fierce, possessive. But it's what's best for you. Stop deciding what's best for me, Maya said firmly. I get a say in my own life, Vincent, and I'm saying I want this. Want you. Whatever complications come with it. Vincent kissed her again, softer this time, like he was memorizing the feel of her. When he pulled away, his expression had shifted back to that controlled determination. Then we do this right. We end the threat, establish your safety beyond question, and then we figure out what this is between us. Agreed? Agreed. A knock interrupted them. Torres, his timing once again perfect or deliberate. Mr. Carmichael Frank Delacroix accepted the meeting. Saturday night, the warehouse in Red Hook. He's bringing 3 associates. We'll bring 6, Vincent replied. All business now. He turned to Maya. You'll stay here, full security. No, Maya interrupted. If this is about me, I should be there. Absolutely not. Vincent, this is not negotiable. His voice carried absolute authority. You wanted training, awareness, ability to protect yourself. Fine. But this meeting with Frank could turn dangerous instantly. I won't risk you being caught in crossfire. Maya wanted to argue, but she saw the fear beneath his command, not for himself, but for her. She nodded reluctantly. Okay, but you come back, you hear me? You don't get to make me care about you and then get yourself hurt being heroic. Vincent's smile was small but genuine. I'll come back. I always do. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth, the kind of late spring day that made New York feel almost magical. Maya spent the morning in Vincent's penthouse, trying to distract herself with books and television, while Sophia kept watch with professional detachment. But her mind kept returning to the meeting scheduled for tonight, to Vincent walking into potential danger, to all the ways this could go wrong. At 2 in the afternoon, Vincent returned from wherever he'd been coordinating the evening's operation. He looked tired, tension evident in the set of his shoulders, but his eyes softened when he saw Maya curled on the couch. You should eat something, he said, moving to the kitchen. You've been picking at food all day, according to Sophia. I'm not hungry, Maya replied, but she followed him anyway, watching as he efficiently assembled sandwiches with surprising domesticity. Where did you learn to cook? My mother, Vincent said, a rare smile touching his lips. She insisted all her children know how to take care of themselves. Said depending on others for basic survival was a weakness. Smart woman? She was. The past tense hung heavy in the air. Vincent slid a plate toward Maya. Eat, please. I need to know you're taking care of yourself. Maya took a bite to appease him, and found herself actually hungry once the food hit her stomach. They ate in comfortable silence, the kind that spoke of growing intimacy, of becoming attuned to each other's presence. Tell me about the plan, Maya said finally. I know you don't want me involved, but I need to understand what's happening. Vincent considered this, then nodded. Frank agreed to meet at a warehouse my family used to own in Red Hook. Neutral ground, with clear sight lines and limited entry points. He's bringing 3 people. I'm bringing 6. The meeting is ostensibly to negotiate territory and resources, to find a peaceful resolution. But that's not really what's happening. No, what's really happening is that I'm presenting him with evidence of his operations that federal prosecutors would love to have. Drug trafficking, extortion, 3 unsolved incidents involving rival operators, enough to put him away for life. And he'll just accept that? Maya asked skeptically. He'll accept it because the alternative is worse. If he doesn't take the deal, retirement to Florida, liquidation of his New York assets, permanent departure from this life, then the evidence goes to the FBI, and he spends his remaining years in a federal prison. Vincent's expression was hard now. All business. Men like Frank understand power, leverage, consequences. He'll take the deal. And if he doesn't, then things get complicated. Vincent's tone suggested exactly how complicated, and Maya decided she didn't need more details. The afternoon stretched into evening. Vincent disappeared to change, emerging in a dark suit that made him look every inch the powerful figure he was. Dangerous, commanding, untouchable. But when he looked at Maya, something in his expression softened, revealing the man beneath the armor. I'll have my phone, he said, crossing to where she stood. If anything happens here, anything at all, you call. Torres and Marcus are staying with you. and there are 6 more security personnel stationed throughout the building. You're expecting trouble, Maya said, fear clutching at her chest. I'm preparing for possibilities. Vincent cupped her face in both hands, his touch gentle despite the tension radiating through his body. But I will come back to you. That's a promise. Maya reached up, covering his hands with hers. You better. I didn't agree to care about you just to lose you to some territorial dispute with a wannabe power player. Vincent's laugh was soft and genuine. Then he kissed her, deep and intense, like he was pouring everything he couldn't say into the contact. When he pulled back, his eyes were dark with emotion. When this is over, he said quietly, we're going to talk about what happens next. About us. About how we navigate this. About building something real despite all the complications. I'd like that, Maya whispered. One more kiss, brief and sweet, then Vincent was gone, Marco and 4 other men following him out. The penthouse felt enormous and empty in his absence, despite Sophia's presence and the knowledge that security surrounded the building. Maya tried to distract herself with a movie but couldn't focus. She paced the windows, watching the city lights begin to sparkle as darkness fell. Red Hook was across the water in Brooklyn, maybe 30 minutes away. Vincent would be there by now, walking into that warehouse facing Frank Delacroix. At 8:30, her phone buzzed. A text from Vincent. Meeting started. All according to plan. Don't worry. Maya typed back. Too late for that. Be careful. The response came immediately. Always. Then nothing. Silence stretched, each minute feeling like an hour. Sophia offered tea, which Maya accepted gratefully, needing something to do with her hands. The hot liquid helped settle her nerves slightly but couldn't dispel the growing dread in her stomach. At 9:15, Torres appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. Miss Torres, we need to move you to the secure room. Now. Maya's heart stopped. What? Why? What happened? The meeting went sideways. Frank brought more people than agreed, had them staged outside. Shots were fired. Mr. Carmichael is handling it, but he wants you in maximum security until the situation is resolved. Is he hurt? Maya demanded, already moving toward Torres. Unknown. Communications are limited. Come on. The secure room turned out to be a reinforced space deeper in the penthouse, with steel doors and no windows. Sophia and Torres ushered Maya inside, along with 2 other security personnel. The room had basic furniture, supplies, and a bank of monitors showing security camera feeds throughout the building. We stay here until we get the all clear from Mr. Carmichael, Torres explained. No matter what you hear or see, we don't leave this room, understood? Maya nodded, her mind racing with terrible possibilities. Vincent in danger, potentially hurt, while she hid behind steel doors. The helplessness was suffocating. Minutes crawled past with agonizing slowness. Maya watched the security feeds obsessively, looking for any sign of threat, any indication of what was happening in Red Hook. The guards remained alert, weapons drawn, positioned at the door. At 9:45, Maya's phone rang. Vincent's number. She answered before the first ring finished. Vincent? Maya. His voice was strained, background noise suggesting chaos, shouting, vehicles, commotion. Listen carefully. Frank's people are coming for you. He staged the meeting as a distraction. His real target was always the penthouse, was always you. Terror, cold and sharp, pierced through Maya. What? He knew I'd leave minimum security with you if I thought the threat was at the meeting. He's trying to take you, use you as leverage against me. But we anticipated this possibility. Vincent's voice grew stronger, more controlled. Torres and Sophia know what to do. You trust them, you follow their instructions exactly. Do you understand? Vincent, where are you? 30 minutes away, moving as fast as I can, but Maya? His voice cracked slightly. If something happens, if they get past security, there's a weapon in the safe behind the bookshelf. Code is your birthday. You use it if you have to. You survive, whatever it takes. Nothing's going to happen, Maya said, trying to sound more confident than she felt. Your people are here, we're secure. An explosion shook the building, cutting off her words. The lights flickered, and alarm systems started wailing. On the security monitors, Maya saw smoke billowing in the main penthouse, figures moving through the haze. 4, 5, 6 of them, armed and advancing with military precision. Maya! Vincent's voice was sharp with panic, an emotion she'd never heard from him. What was that? Talk to me. They're inside, Torres said grimly, moving to reinforce the door. They breached the main entrance. 6 hostiles, possibly more, were locked down, but another explosion, closer this time. The secure room shuddered. and Maya heard the distinctive sound of gunfire echoing through the penthouse. "Hold position," Vincent commanded through the phone, his voice carrying absolute authority even through the speaker. "I'm 10 minutes out. Hold them off for 10 minutes. "We will, sir," Torres promised. Then to Sophia and the others, "Defensive positions. They're coming through that door eventually, so we prepare to hold them at the choke point." Maya's training over the past few weeks kicked in, the awareness exercises, the basic self-defense, the crisis management Vincent had insisted on. She moved to the position Torres indicated, behind cover, but with a clear view of the door. Her hands were shaking, adrenaline flooding her system, but her mind felt strangely clear. The sounds of combat grew closer. Gunfire, shouting, the crash of furniture being overturned. Then silence, heavy and ominous. "They've taken out the outer security," Sophia said quietly. "It's just us now." The steel door shuddered as something heavy impacted it from outside. Once, twice, 3 times. Maya could hear voices, harsh, professional, coordinating their breach. "Maya," Vincent's voice came through her phone, quieter now but intense. "Whatever happens, know that He stopped, seeming to struggle with words. "Know that meeting you changed everything. That I haven't felt this way about anyone, ever. That you made me remember what it means to care about something beyond power and control." "Vincent, don't," Maya said, tears pricking her eyes. "Don't say goodbye. You're going to get here. We're going to be fine. And we're going to have that conversation about our future. That's what's happening." "Yes," Vincent agreed, and she could hear the forced confidence in his voice. "That's exactly what's happening. 5 minutes, Maya. Hold on for 5 minutes." The door exploded inward with a shaped charge, smoke and debris filling the air. Torres and his team returned fire immediately, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. Maya saw figures in the doorway, professionals with tactical gear and military precision. But Vincent's people were professionals too. They held the choke point, turned the doorway into a killing field, made every inch of advancement costly. Sophia moved with lethal efficiency, her shots precise and controlled. Torres barked orders, coordinating their defense, buying time with skill and determination. But there were more attackers than defenders, and they kept coming. One of Vincent's security team went down, then another. Torres took a hit to his shoulder but kept firing, his face set in grim determination. Maya found herself moving on instinct, grabbing the fallen guard's weapon, covering angles the way she'd been taught. She wasn't a fighter, wasn't trained for this, but she could follow instructions, could add one more gun to their defense. 3 minutes, Vincent's voice came through her phone, which she'd somehow managed to keep in her pocket. "I'm in the building. Hold on." Then she heard it. Gunfire from a different direction from behind the attackers. Vincent's voice, sharp and commanding, cutting through the chaos. The attack on the secure room faltered as Frank's people suddenly found themselves caught between 2 forces. The next 2 minutes were chaos. Gunfire, shouting, the acrid smell of smoke and cordite. Maya stayed behind cover, her heart pounding, watching as Vincent's reinforcements pushed through from the main penthouse. She caught glimpses of him through the smoke, moving with deadly purpose, his expensive suit torn and bloodied, his face a mask of controlled fury. Then it was over. The attackers were down, disarmed or fleeing. Vincent burst into the secure room, his eyes scanning frantically until they landed on Maya. Relief transformed his expression, and he crossed the space in 3 strides, pulling her into his arms with almost desperate intensity. "You're okay," he said against her hair, his voice rough. "Thank God you're okay." Maya clung to him, feeling the rapid beat of his heart, the tension slowly draining from his body. He was solid and real and alive, and that was all that mattered. "You came back," she whispered. "Always," Vincent replied. "I'll always come back to you." Around them, his security team was securing the scene, checking casualties, coordinating with police who were undoubtedly responding to the explosions and gunfire. Torres sat against the wall, being tended by Sophia, his shoulder bandaged but his expression satisfied. "Frank?" Maya asked quietly. "In custody," Vincent said, pulling back slightly to cup her face, checking her for injuries. Federal agents were waiting at the warehouse with enough evidence to ensure he'll never see freedom again. This attack was his desperation play, his last attempt to salvage his power by taking the one thing that could hurt me. His thumb traced her cheekbone gently. "You. Did he know?" Maya asked. "About us?" He suspected, made assumptions based on my protection of you. He was right, of course. Vincent's smile was small but genuine. I wasn't as subtle as I thought, keeping you safe. Police and federal agents flooded the penthouse, turning the space into a crime scene. Vincent coordinated with them with calm authority, giving statements, providing information, demonstrating the legitimate cooperation between his organization and law enforcement that allowed him to operate in the gray spaces between legal and illegal. Maya found herself giving her own statement to a sympathetic detective, explaining the attack, her role in the earlier incident at Marcello's, the escalation of Frank Delacroix's vendetta. It was exhausting and surreal, watching her life become an official record, a case file, evidence in federal proceedings. Dawn was breaking over Manhattan when the authorities finally cleared out, leaving the damaged penthouse in eerie silence. Vincent's security team had been reduced but not broken. Torres would recover, the other injured guards would heal, and the two who hadn't survived would be honored and their families cared for. Vincent found Maya on the balcony, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and pink. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, then his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. "It's over," he said quietly. "Frank will spend the rest of his life in federal custody. His organization is dismantled, the threat is gone." "And now?" Maya asked, leaning into his warmth. "Now we figure out what comes next." Vincent turned her to face him, his expression open in a way she'd never seen before. "I meant what I said earlier. You changed everything for me, Maya. Made me want things I'd convinced myself weren't possible. Partnership, trust, something real and honest and good." Maya reached up, tracing the lines of exhaustion and stress on his face. "I want those things too, but I need to know we can build something that isn't just about protection and danger and crisis. Something normal, whatever that means in your world." "We can," Vincent promised. "We will. It won't be conventional. I can't leave my responsibilities, my organization, the empire I've built, but I can make space for a life beyond it, for dinners without security details hovering, for mornings drinking coffee and reading the paper, for building something together that's ours, separate from everything else." "I'd like that," Maya said softly, "though I have conditions." Vincent's eyebrow rose, amused. "Conditions?" "I keep working. Maybe not at Marcello's, that might be weird now, but I'm not becoming someone who just exists in your orbit. I need my own purpose, my own identity." "Agreed. What else?" "We take this slow. Yes, crisis accelerated things, but we've known each other less than a month. We need time to figure out who we are when we're not dealing with threats and danger." "Also agreed." Vincent smiled, and it transformed his face into something warm and genuine. "Though I should warn you, I'm not particularly patient when I want something, and I want you, Maya Torres. Want to build this life with you, messy and complicated as it might be." Maya stood on her toes, kissing him gently. "Then I guess we'll figure it out together. The mob boss and the waitress building something impossible." "Nothing's impossible," Vincent murmured against her lips. "You taught me that. When you threw coffee in an armed man's face, when you refused to hide, when you demanded to be seen as more than someone to be protected. You're remarkable, Maya. The bravest person I've ever known." They stood together as the sun climbed higher, the city waking below them, damaged penthouse at their backs and uncertain future ahead. But for the first time in her adult life, Maya felt genuinely safe, not because of security details or fortified rooms, but because she'd found someone who saw her completely and chose her anyway. Someone willing to fight for her, to change for her, to build something new with her. 3 months later, Maya adjusted her apron, checking her reflection in the mirror of the small office. The cafe was her own, a cozy space in the West Village that served excellent coffee and simple food to a neighborhood clientele. Vincent had helped with the initial investment, but the concept, execution, and daily operation were entirely hers. It had taken weeks to set up, to hire staff, to build something that felt authentically hers, rather than an extension of Vincent's world. But he'd supported every decision, never pushing, always available when she asked for advice but respecting her independence. They'd learned to navigate their relationship carefully, dinner dates without security hovering too close, weekends at a beach house where they could pretend to be normal people, mornings in her new apartment where Vincent would appear with groceries and cook breakfast, while she told him about troublesome espresso machines and demanding customers. It wasn't conventional. Vincent still ran his organization, still dealt with the complex realities of his world, but he'd built walls between that life and what he shared with Maya, protecting their relationship from the darkness that came with power. "Maya," Her assistant manager, Katie, stuck her head into the office. "Your 3 o'clock is here." Maya smiled, checking her watch. Right on time, as always. She emerged from the office to find Vincent at a corner table, laptop open, working on whatever legitimate business currently occupied his attention. He looked up when she approached and his entire expression softened. "Hi," she said, sliding into the seat across from him. "Hi yourself." Vincent closed his laptop, giving her his complete attention. "How's your day?" "Good. Busy lunch rush, 3 meetings with potential suppliers, and I think I finally figured out the staffing schedule that doesn't make everyone hate me." "Excellent. I'm proud of you." Vincent reached across the table, taking her hand. The simple gesture still sent warmth through her chest. "Dinner tonight? I'm cooking. Your place or mine?" "Yours. Mine still has construction crews repairing explosion damage." Maya laughed. "Fair point. 7? Perfect." A customer approached for a refill, pulling Maya's attention away. Vincent watched her work with obvious affection, content to sit in her cafe, existing in her world, rather than always pulling her into his. When Maya returned to his table 20 minutes later, Vincent had a small box waiting beside his coffee cup. "What's this?" she asked, eyeing it suspiciously. "Open it." Inside was a key on a simple keychain. Maya looked at him questioningly. "It's to my place," Vincent explained. "Not the penthouse that's still being renovated, my house in Westchester. I want you to have access, to feel comfortable coming and going, to know you have a space there that's yours." Maya turned the key over in her fingers, understanding the significance. This wasn't just about physical access, it was Vincent saying she was permanent, integrated into his life in ways that mattered. "Thank you," she said quietly. "I'll add it to my collection. I think I'm up to 3 keys to your various properties now." "Only 3? I should work on that." They smiled at each other, comfortable in their understanding, in the life they were building together. It wasn't perfect. They still navigated his world carefully, still dealt with curious stares when people recognized him, still had security considerations that normal couples never thought about. But it was real, honest, built on choice rather than obligation, on partnership rather than protection. Maya Torres had walked into Marcello's 4 months ago as an invisible waitress, tired and struggling. She'd left as someone who'd saved a life, changed a man, and discovered her own strength in the process. And Vincent Carmichael, the feared mob boss who'd thought he needed no one, had learned that sometimes the bravest thing wasn't control or power. It was opening yourself to love, with all its risks and complications and magnificent possibilities. They'd called her reckless once for throwing coffee in a gunman's face, but maybe the real recklessness was choosing love in a world designed to make love impossible. And maybe that was the bravest choice of all.